Years ago, there were a piece of technology that emerged. And that was meant to be the next best thing in the defense of every system. That was essentially IDSs and IPSs. So we already had firewalls. Now you need an IDS and IPS because this will allow you to know when threats are active in your environment, and there is a number of signatures that you need to maintain and a lot of attacks that emerge with it. And it did quite of change in the environment, but that was meant to be something that it was the ultimate answer. It would solve all your problems for as long as you had people in your SOC. You would be able to answer. Um, then we had ransomware, right? And we all saw the results of that, better or worse. If you're in an environment where you can detect a lot of things really soon and react really soon, congratulations. You're doing an amazing job. If not, we are also hearing about SOX burnout and the operators going on a burnout or on exhaustion because there's a pile of work to do. The defense can't work without understanding the baseline of the network, and that means that some of these things are only collected over a period of time and needs a lot of eyeballs to go through to understand where the weird things are. Now, AI here, or what we have been calling AI, which I really think that is just the next generation of the search engine because it is able to create relationships with within a staggering amount of information. That is essentially a search engine because it doesn't really think, does it? It cannot come up with new things on its own. It only creates things based on the stuff that it already knows. A human or an intelligent human being will read a book and create new pieces of software based on that information. This is the act of coding, right? If your code is something, is basically a collection of code snippets from your books, you're not a developer. You're essentially you're a puzzle maker. Not really a developer. So you need to get past that level, the level where you need to read and to see an example in order to build something, right? So AI is yet to do that. I have a screenshots of something about that I will show later. But for the operation security or the red teaming exercise or purple teaming or pen tests, yeah, things are going to change, and things are going to change because they're actually already changing because we have that power. Now we have something that has the ability to react based on information that is collecting in live, and making connections. So you don't need we don't exactly need an eyeball on the dashboard to see a particular number of tags to react to it. We may have a preemptive reaction to it, and have some of the initial investigation being triggered automatically to stop the work. We already seen with a few clients things like that happening, and it is essentially translating more work into the pipeline of an assessment. Now, I think I already said this in the channel already once. When pentest started, it was always meant to be something that would mimic a real attack. So we would work with exploits, we would make things get past the AVs. That was the expected norm. There were a multitude of factors that made things change, most of them around budgets, and the sectioning of the pen tests into multiple fields, web, infrastructure, and so on, to make things more attractive budget-wise, and also to fit the pipeline over years. And so in that sense, the all the part of evasion, of defense evasion, fell apart for a while. It was a safe, it was basically assumed that if you have an IDS or an IPS or a SOC, either you could bypass those defenses until some time, until someone catches up, or it would assume that that was a silver bullet and eventually you will find it. Now, I've pen tested a number of clients where we unfortunately realized that the infrastructure is already pwned for a very long time. These days, a lot of those clients are met with ransomware, so those things don't happen as much in that. Just like that, but in the past we had beacons, active beacons going for years in clients' infrastructure completely unnoticed. These days, there are a number of tools that can take advantage of that highly processing power. Personally, I think DAI is basically an advanced search engine. What you have is something that you can query and to get a massive amount of results tailored on something that really understands how somewhat human language works better than the version 2 of the search engine, which is essentially was born with Google. They did amazing work. In the past, you would query something, and unless the exact words that you had on that query were in the database, you would scroll for years until you found a website. So bookmarks became quite impressive, quite useful and difficult to maintain. These days, they're not. So the AI is actually a lot more useful in that way. On the other side, we're starting to see things like the AI being used for code bases. Pen testing wise, I'm really happy about that because the code that it's once again it's going to learn from somewhere, and we all know that the majority of the internet is filled with very interesting pieces of code. So the source of those is not really the best, is it? We see a lot of weird and shady pieces of code, especially coming from juniors, where those will come more frequently as they are succumb to the pressure of having something finished on a time sense. For pen tests, we will essentially use that in a different sense. We need to have you will need to eventually to build your own lab, have an idea what things you leave behind, and find alternative paths to it to achieve your goals. And now this will always mean that you need more time, more planning, more skills will need to be acquired. Now you'll probably have to dig into the defense operations as well. You need to have that knowledge so that you can adjust your actions. It also means that you need to work with with your tools a lot more. So the Metasploit changed things a lot. It basically changed the entire field. It was difficult to work with the exploits in the past. You needed to be really fluent in shell coding and a lot of other skills in order to be efficient in exploiting things. These days, Metasploit did a very, very interesting work and one that changed the field completely. It also changed the field in the sense that the skills are required. These days, we see a lot of pen testers that never had to work with a shell code or find shell coding unnecessary or weird because memory corruption bugs are a thing in the past. I also don't subscribe to that religion. So in that sense, we have a very big generation of information security individuals that were basically grew their skills during that time, and only a select few actually got interested in the underlying layers and how those things operated. And this is one of the reasons why exploit is so valuable. It's difficult to exploit, the bypasses exist, but the skills and the knowledge to be able to pull them out and the time required pull them out is something that makes it only available for the opportunity available only for a select few. And this is it creates the scarcity of those. So for the AI, context is everything. Now the cloud here is important because a single machine cannot keep the context of something in over an extended period of time, right? But a cloud environment does. So if an operator or a product of a company with a product like Windows, for example, decides to have something that can clump all that information, feed it into an AI agent, then the operators are in trouble. Now, I don't mean threat actors because those will have a lot of time. They're not managed. The opportunities for a threat actor are completely different, right? When you ask for an assessment or a teaming exercise, there is a finite number of weeks where that will happen. You need to find an opportunity within that week, and the whole team, usually, in some cases, because depends on how the cell is made. In some cases, only a few people know that it's going to happen. In other cases, the thing just leaks out and everyone knows. But even if we consider the best case scenario, where only a select number of people know, you need to find a way in within a finite number of days. And that never happens in a real case. In a real case, you will find an opportunity to get in when that time comes, right? A new vulnerability emerged, and you can get that. You have a number of people buying exploits, finding vulnerabilities, and crafting exploits, and when the opportunity comes, you're in, right? You fuzz, you know what applications they're using, you fuzz the living hell out of that, and eventually you find something. If you find a vulnerable version, which eventually will show up something, right? Software changes all the time, bugs emerge all the time, so it's fairly easy. Doesn't have to be a memory corruption bug, might be a race condition, might be a file write, something, right? Mail client, whatever. And you find a way in. So there is an extended period of time here that's usually a factor. There's also other factors that are emerging right now. And this is a result of that. So, and that is buying access from employees. And that is actually quite active. In that sense, we're diluting things over an extended period of time, which makes the cloud environment and the context really, really hard to maintain. And that's basically the key here. If you have the right context, you might be able to pick that up. Now, the cloud environment, the environment itself is fairly noisy. If you open an event viewer or open any log, you will face basically a fire hose of things going your way, and to find the signal in all that noise, it requires a lot of skill. So filtering that through something like an AI engine might help you out, but it's not a silver bullet because it won't, again, the context of it is known attack vectors. So creativity and clever tactics here are really crucial. So I don't see things changing as much for threat actors as for pen tests and red teaming. There will be there will be more skills that would need to be required in the future. Unfortunately, you might have to go back into the somewhat the old days where a lot of development skills or some development skills were actually required because the amount of time between you having successfully invaded a defense product has shrunk significantly, astonishingly in some cases. As soon as you start the assessment, 2-3 weeks, in some cases days, you might be off. Once again, that is because things in these types of assessments are fairly short. Really are companies where rarely you will find companies where you can dilute an assessment over an extended period of time. That's my take on AI. Now I said I'm going to show something here. Let me switch it over, but before that, let me open two pictures here, just to highlight what I mean with context. So let me push things on the screen right now. Let's see these things. I recently, a colleague of mine proved me wrong on something related to what I'm about to show. Okay, so let's start with that, and let me transition this here. Yeah, let's do transition. Amazing. Let's go on that and hello, there it is. Okay, so there are two pictures in here. One of them is hidden by my amazing face. And let's go over this for a bit. Now, this code was created by ChatGPT a while back when I was poking around with it. And the idea was, okay, can you create a dynamic reverse port forwarding? So the idea was to have something that most of C2s have these days. And that is basically something that will allow you to pull ports out of the client onto your local machine so that you can interact with it locally for pivoting and other funny shenanigans like that. It went really wild. It went wild because it was never able to finish the code. This is basically how it ended. And also it had cases where it called out APIs that don't exist. This one here. So why is that? Well, that happens because basically we're working with C, right? There's not much of it online these days. I also asked it to use a library, which I know for a fact that only a select number of examples online, and none of them is to be this. Now, recently, a colleague of mine used a different API, different AI model, different LLM, one out of Google, and it was actually able to craft this exercise on the third try within an acceptable kind of range. Basically, the packets would arrive in the wrong order, but that he can solve quite easily. On the ChatGPT world, it went wild. As the number of retries I did, the wilder it got. This is not just important for development. This is also important for the aspect of the defense as well, right? If we consider the did it transition? If we consider, let's get that. If we consider the defense operations, you cannot have something that goes wild like this, right? Coming up with a connection between attacks in an attack chain that really doesn't make any sense. But that's where you want to fall if you are doing a pen test. So it will change in a sense where you're not just alluring the operator or trying to hide your actions. You're now trying to get the defense confused as well. And that will require a number of hours digging through the attack's details and the clues they leave behind so that you can actually evade those tactics. It's not going to be in a silver bullet, but we are once again in another trend, like in the past where we had with the IDSs and IPSs and whatnot. So play with it. Code-wise, I wouldn't recommend it. I think you can use this to learn how to code or explain complex pieces of code that you might be interested in understanding how they work. and recreating them yourself would probably be useful a lot. It can also be used to simplify your notes and build notes about your things, and use it essentially as a search engine. That would help you a lot, definitely, because then you have something that will cut your search time by a lot. So that was it for AI. Let me know if you want to have other cases like this, other than just rambling about something more technical, going on code or seeing a few AV visions in practice. I do have some slides on this from the training, so I won't be able to go too deep without getting in trouble, but I might show you some of the shenanigans we do in that sense for our own operations. And I'll see you in the next one.